No one is too big to fail in Venezuela. Today we discuss.
Welcome to Venezuela Insider, the only place in Venezuela for expats, digital nomads, entrepreneurs, investors, travelers, and related internationals. For more information, venezuelainsider.com.
Today we are going to explain a little bit more the too big to fail concept and why it does not apply in Venezuela. Okay, first let's define this. This particular motto, sentence, concept was popular after the GFC, the Great Financial Crisis of 2008. In case you don't remember and you don't know the story, many banks, many Wall Street firms, they were on a difficult financial position, and most of them were poised to bankrupt, so basically collapse. And these big financial firms like Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan and Merrill Lynch, and actually one of those went bankrupt, actually Lehman Brothers. That was a big deal back then. But the main point is that these particular companies, they said, their CEOs and their board members said that they were too big to fail, so they need a government bailout, a financial bailout, in order to keep working, keep doing their own thing. And because the entire US economy is going to collapse if such particular financial institutions don't receive a particular financial aid, and hence collapsing the entire financial industry of the United States. And basically, those companies receive a particular financial aid, where I don't remember right now, the number was like $1 trillion, something like that. And of course, many people were disgusted, the US taxpayers, because that money was used in order to bail out, not let bankrupt these particular banks. And if they are playing capitalism game and they are doing it bad, so the bailout is technically socialist. Okay, but we're not talking about communism and socialism today. Please bear with me. The main point is that many companies, this happens not only on the financial industry in the United States, but many companies, the US economy is dominated by these big mega corporations like the pharmaceuticals, the retailers, the banks, of course, the Wall Street banks and the retail banks, and also right now the IT companies, the tech companies, the Silicon Valley things. So basically, the United States is dominated, most of the economy, most of the GDP is dominated by a handful of companies. And these companies, of course, they are big political donors for both the Democrats and the Republicans. So basically, these companies dominate the US economy. And the funny thing, though, that the United States is, quote unquote, a capitalistic free market economy. That, by the way, that free market thing, we should, that's just the narrative. But we have capitalism, and capitalism in the United States basically works that these companies make a lot of money and that kind of thing. And the little guy, the entrepreneur, that kind of thing, basically cannot compete with such guys. Meanwhile, in a country like Venezuela, that is, quote unquote, socialist, communist, actually, a small guy, of course, with a little bit of capital and a good know-how, can compete with the big guys. And that already happened in Venezuela and is happening right now. And first, I have to give the disclaimer, I have nothing against the US economy, and they have their own thing. It's just this difference between the narrative, the free market capitalism, and how actually works with these corporations that own politicians. But I don't want to get too political on this video. It's just a fact of life and a fact of the economy overall, and that happens on a lesser degree in the rest of the world. So it's not creating panic for that. However, in Venezuela, funny thing though is that the big ones actually, if they are not competitive enough, they are not a holy grail. Those companies can be bankrupt if they don't do the thing right. And actually, that happened even with the biggest company that we have in the country, that is a state-owned company, that is, of course, PDVSA. Even PDVSA is not big enough to fail here on the country. But today we are not talking about the oil industry or anything. We are talking about the private consumption and B2B companies and that kind of thing. For instance, let's use household names in worldwide. That, for instance, McDonald's. McDonald's during the crisis did not do things right during the Venezuelan 80% GDP collapse. Remember, I always mention the Venezuelan nuances, and especially the economic nuances. The McDonald's operators were not able to adapt on time the Venezuelan nuances to their business model that is actually successful in most places all over the world. But during the 80% GDP collapse, that particular business model was not successful because they did not adapt to the Venezuelan nuances. And actually, on the past 5 years or something, many branches of McDonald's have closed their doors here in the country. And by the way, if you come here, we still have McDonald's, by the way, so don't worry about it. You can have your Big Mac here on Venezuela, don't worry about it. But we just have less branches, less restaurants on the country compared to a decade ago. And that happened is because actually very small entrepreneurs, a significant cohort of them started selling burgers and pizzas and, fast food items with good quality on reasonable prices that they can compete with McDonald's both on price and quality. And the end result is that just on brand alone, you cannot compete in Venezuela if you don't adapt with the Venezuelan nuances. Other similar story happened with Coca-Cola. I shared this story, and I shared that I like to drink Coca-Cola, by the way, and please don't follow any health advice from me. I beg you to do so. Anyways, we have McDonald's, of course, in case you don't know, and of course you don't, that Coca-Cola has basically a monopoly on the soft drink market worldwide. And of course, you have Pepsi playing second fiddle over there, but the big guy is Coca-Cola. It is what it is. Now, today, we are seeing, this is in Venezuela, by the way. This is the last year, something that surprised me because I love Coca-Cola, by the way. I'm a big fan. I still have like the polar bear with a Christmas hat on Coca-Cola somewhere. Anyways, well, the issue is that I drink Coca-Cola. I drink Coca-Cola a lot. I love Coca-Cola. But the issue is that I noticed first, they dropped their prices here in the country on nominal terms. That's a funny thing. They dropped their prices, and what happened is start asking people because I only drink Coca-Cola. And the people told me, boots on the ground work and research, that's why consulting matters, is that there are a handful of companies right now, low-end soft drink companies, making a similar product to Coca-Cola that I wouldn't buy it, but many people will. Actually, that's the point here in this video. It's way cheaper. It has apparently the similar quality of Coca-Cola and Pepsi and all that kind of thing. So I'm not sponsored for a soft drink company, so can mention all. But the main point is that these particular niche companies are competing both in price and quality with Coca-Cola, and they have diminished significantly the market share of both Coca-Cola and Pepsi. Now, both of these brands, Coca-Cola and Pepsi, are still the big guys, but now they have to compete with a third company. I'm talking, a handful of one. It's not just one, it's a handful of one. So they have like a third of the market right now. That's unheard of on Coca-Cola's history. Basically, they are the juggernaut. And sometimes Coca-Cola has to, share the market share with Pepsi on a lesser degree at some point in time. But in Venezuela, it's not the case. Coca-Cola is still the big guy, by the way, but with less market share that other countries all over the world, other markets. And Pepsi, of course, still Pepsi has a big position here. But these third companies are doing not only good and not only great, they are doing excellent because they took a huge chunk of Coca-Cola's market share and can straight up compete with them. And that's one of the values that Venezuela provides if you are a good entrepreneur, a bona fide entrepreneur, and a good businessman, or you already have your particular company, your particular service, depending on those things. Of course, adapted with the Venezuelan nuances. I always have to keep that disclaimer. But the main point is, it's something that is beautiful. The country that is considered one of the worst, with one of the worst economies all over the world, communist, socialist, that kind of thing. Imagine, in a country like this, the small guy can compete and create havoc with the big guys, something that you don't see in the United States or Western Europe, even other parts in Latin America. So if you are listening to this and you are the little guy that you cannot compete with the big juggernauts on your industry, on your home country, Venezuela might be for you. I'm not saying come rush here and do your thing, but it's time to do your due diligence.
Thank you for watching Venezuela Insider. Please like, share, and subscribe. Follow us on social media. If you want to work with us, VenezuelaInsider.com. Thanks again and have a nice day.